President Trump has been nominated to receive the Nobel Peace Prize because of his work on achieving a peace agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. The peace agreement will be officially signed at the White House on September 15th. The final winner of the Nobel Peace Prize will be announced on October the 9th. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go to sleep now. The peace train is rumbling out of the station. You've just got to realize the significance of what you and I are living through right now. I would remind everyone here that the Bible prophesies when a peace agreement is signed between the Palestinians and the Israelis, you and I will enter the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the physical return of Jesus Christ to this earth. We're going to talk about this and a lot of things that are happening right now on today's program. Donald Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize after negotiating the Israeli-United Arab Emirates deal. This comes out in the Jerusalem Post the 9th of September. Here's a little bit of the story. U.S. President Donald Trump was nominated for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts in reaching the agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Christian Tybring-Gjedde, a member of the Norwegian Parliament and chairman to the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, submitted the nomination. For his merit, I think he has done more trying to create peace between nations than most other Peace Prize nominees. Tybring-Gjedde told Fox News it is for his contribution for peace between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, in addition to the Israeli-UAE deal. The nomination letter to the Nobel Committee cited Trump's key role in facilitating contact between conflicting parties, such as the Kashmir border dispute between India and Pakistan, and the conflict between North and South Korea. The parliamentarian told Fox News that he is nevertheless not a big Trump supporter. The committee should look at the facts and judge him on the facts, not on the way he behaves sometimes, he continued. The people who have received the Peace Prize in recent years have done much less than Donald Trump. For example, Barack Obama did nothing, he told the cable news outlet, referring to the former U.S. president's Nobel Peace Prize win in 2009. For, according to the Nobel Committee, his extraordinary efforts to strengthen international diplomacy and cooperation between peoples. Let's pause there just a moment. You know that Obama had just become president when all of a sudden the Nobel Committee announced they were awarding him the Peace Prize, and everybody looked around and said, what has he done? All he's done is go to a few countries and make a few speeches, but as far as any tangible accomplishments, there haven't been any. This is what the author and the parliamentarian is referring to here. Last year, Trump said he deserved to be awarded the Peace Prize for his work on North Korea and Syria, but he complained he probably would never get the honor. The winner of the Nobel Prize is selected by a panel of 5 members of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, which is appointed by the Parliament of Norway. The prize is awarded on December the 10th every year, and the winner is announced on October the 9th. Now, stop just a moment. If that means this October the 9th, then that means if Trump should be awarded the prize, it would happen less than 1 month prior to America's elections. We'll have to wait and see exactly how that turns out. That's all the information I have. Thousands of people are eligible to nominate candidates for the Nobel Peace Prize, including members of parliaments and governments, university professors, and past laureates. Now comes the announcement that the UAE-Israeli agreement will be signed at the White House on September the 15th. This comes from Israel National News on the 8th of September. Well, we've got a lot more to tell you. And don't forget, this deal they will be signing on the 15th is called the Abraham Accords. That is the promise that God gave to Abraham that the land of Israel would belong to him and his descendants forever. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in interesting territory.
Major internet companies are silencing and censoring Christian voices online. These companies are trying to control what you see and hear. Almost 200 videos of ours have been marked as restricted online right now. That's why we launched End of the Age Plus, a platform where the truth won't be censored, a platform where we can preach the message of the gospel. When you subscribe to End of the Age Plus today for just $12.99 a month, you can watch all of our content in a secure, easy-to-view way from your favorite device. When you go to watch.endtime.com and subscribe, you'll get instant access to all of our teaching resources, including Revelation, the Unveiling of Jesus Christ, Understanding the End Time, End Time Magazine, and so much more. We will not censor our message to comply with what the world deems as politically correct. Go to watch.endtime.com right now or search End of the Age Plus in the App Store or Google Play.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, End Time Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
The agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates is now called the Abraham Accords. This is the peace agreement to normalize relations between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, and it will be signed in a special ceremony at the White House next Tuesday, September 15th. The Trump administration has just announced. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and United Arab Emirates Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed will attend the ceremony at the head of the Israeli and Emirati delegations. The agreement is the third of its kind between Israel and an Arab state, following peace agreements with Egypt in 1979 and Jordan in 1994. Now let's make sure we really get this. This is only the third agreement in the last 72 years since the declaration of Israel as a nation, the Declaration of Israeli Independence in 1948. So this is not happening every day. This is only the third time. And it's so highly significant that the name of this agreement would be the Abraham Accord, because in Genesis 15, verse number 18, that's where God said to Abraham, I enter into covenant with you this day, that the land on which you dwell will be yours and your descendants after you forever. That's what this entire agreement is dealing with here. And yet that was a promise given by God to Abraham 4,000 years ago. That's enough to make your hair stand on end. I want to take you to another article. This article is entitled Kosovo, Serbia to Formalize Ties with Israel, Open the Jerusalem embassy also as well. Now, let's make sure we understand this. No nation on earth recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital until America did it in 2018. It was December the 6th of 2017 that President Trump announced that he would, in fact, recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and would move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And he actually did this on May the 14th of 2018. Listen to what this article has to say now. Kosovo intends to establish diplomatic ties with Israel, and both that Balkan Muslim majority nation as well as Serbia plan to open embassies in Jerusalem. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed both historic announcements which were made by U.S. President Donald Trump from the White House's Oval Office on Friday during a meeting to establish normalized economic ties between Serbia and Kosovo. Kosovo will be the first Muslim majority country to open an embassy in Jerusalem. As I said, during the last days, the circle of peace and recognition of Israel is expanding, with more countries expected to join, Netanyahu said. Trump called Netanyahu during a meeting with Kosovo Prime Minister Abdullah Hadi to congratulate both leaders on the decision to establish diplomatic relations. Kosovo President Hashim Thaçi later tweeted, I welcome the announcement of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu about the genuine intention to recognize Kosovo and establish diplomatic relations. Kosovo will keep its promise to place its diplomatic mission in Jerusalem, Thaçi wrote. With regard to Serbia, Netanyahu said, I thank my friend, the Serbian President Alexander Vučić, for the decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and to transfer to his country's embassy. I would like to thank my friend, President Trump, for his contribution to this achievement. We will continue efforts so that additional European countries will transfer their embassies to Jerusalem. Make sure we notice this. Both Kosovo and Serbia would be the first European countries to open embassies in Jerusalem. Serbia is not a member of the European Union and thus is not bound by the same policy considerations as the 27 members of the EU, but it is in the process of becoming a member state. Kosovo would also like to join the EU and is viewed as a potential candidate for accession. Foreign Minister Gabi Ashkenazi, he's the foreign minister of Israel, called on all countries to follow Serbia and Kosovo's example by opening embassies in Jerusalem. The city of Jerusalem, listen to this statement, the city of Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the state of Israel, will be a bridge of peace to the entire world. I call on other countries to follow in their footsteps, that of Serbia and Kosovo, and move their embassies to Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. Ashkenazi thanked Trump and his administration for their peacemaking efforts. The U.S. administration continues to lead to significant diplomatic breakthroughs, both in our relations with Serbia and Kosovo, as well as the promotion of normalization and the historic peace agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Israel has no more important ally than the United States. Now that's prophetic as well, as I know most of you would be aware, since the Bible prophesies that the United States will be Israel's main friend in the end time. Well, that's happening right now. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, also praised the diplomatic advancements, which came just weeks after the historic announcement that Israel and the United Arab Emirates would normalize ties. Another breakthrough, another Muslim country normalizing ties with Israel. After the UAE and Kosovo, I believe more Muslim and Arab states will opt for peace, leaving the Palestinians isolated. Perhaps this will convince future Palestinian leaders to make concessions for peace, Erdan tweeted. Now stop a minute. Did you notice that Erdan, who is the ambassador from Israel to both the United Nations and the United States, he says perhaps all of this activity will result in the Palestinians, in future Palestinian leaders moving to make peace. So who's he talking about? He's already projecting there's going to be a change of leadership, possibly both over Hamas and over the Palestinian Authority, because both of those positions right now, there's a lot of rumors that there's going to be changes in both of those positions. I congratulate Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump on this great achievement, Erdan said. Serbia and Kosovo will now open embassies in Jerusalem, following in America's footsteps and paving the way for more countries, he added. Trump added, "We have other countries in the Middle East coming very much to us saying, like, when do we go? When can we sign?" I think we're going to have a great peace in the Middle East, said President Trump. Now this breaking news. Malawi to open embassy in Jerusalem. The African country of Malawi over the weekend announced that it would open an embassy in Jerusalem, following on the heels of similar announcements by Serbia and Kosovo, according to media reports. To date, only the United States and Guatemala have embassies in Jerusalem, while the remainder of the 87 embassies in Israel are located in the Tel Aviv area. Now, did you catch that? Only 2 nations now have embassies in Jerusalem. The United States, Guatemala. But all of a sudden, it's almost like the dam has broken. One nation after another is announcing that they will place their embassies also in Jerusalem. When President Trump made his world-shaking announcement that the United States would move its embassy to Jerusalem, the whole world said, "You can't do that." President Trump's phone rang off the hook. You got to change your mind. You can't do that. Denunciation after denunciation came. But because he's a leader, not a follower, he went ahead and did what he said. I was in Jerusalem the day that the embassy opened in Jerusalem. I was there. There was great rejoicing in the nation of Israel. Well, now, very quickly following was then Guatemala. Now then we're going to have Kosovo and Serbia, as well as Malawi. It's just one after another. Should Malawi make good on its pledge, it would be the first African country to take this step. First African country. U.S. President Donald Trump's peace plan clarifies that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. The U.S. has pushed for other countries to recognize this by relocating their embassies there. Then comes this report. Agreement with Bahrain expected this month. This was published on Israel National News just on September the 7th. Bahrain and Israel are working to finalize an agreement to normalize ties between the two countries. Channel 12 News reported on Sunday. According to the report, Mossad chief Yossi Cohen is currently in close contact with senior officials in the country in order to make the agreement public and coordinating the declaration of normalization between the two countries. A long list of countries are lining up. Bahrain is currently the leader among them, said Israeli officials quoted in Sunday's report. The U.S. administration is also involved in the effort, including through visits to Bahrain, which last year hosted the conference that dealt with the economic part of the Trump administration's peace plan. The announcement on normalization of ties with Bahrain is expected after the ceremony to establish ties with the United Arab Emirates, which is scheduled to take place in Washington on September the 15th. Sunday's report follows the Bahraini government's announcement last Thursday that it had accepted a request from the government of the United Arab Emirates to allow flights between the UAE and Israel to cross Bahrainian airspace. That announcement came a day after Saudi Arabia agreed to allow United Arab Emirates flights to all countries to overfly the Saudi kingdom. Bahrain and Israel are working to finalize an agreement to normalize ties between the two countries, Channel 12 News reported on Sunday. A long list of countries are lining up. Bahrain is currently the leader among them, said Israeli officials quoted in Sunday's report. The U.S. administration is also involved in the effort, including through visits to Bahrain, which last year hosted the conference that dealt with the economic part of the Trump administration's peace plan. Sunday's report follows the Bahraini government's announcement last Thursday that it had accepted a request from the government of the United Arab Emirates to allow flights between the United Arab Emirates and Israel to cross its airspace, as we mentioned above. That announcement came a day after Saudi Arabia agreed to allow United Arab Emirates flights to all countries, to overfly the Saudi kingdom. Pretty amazing. Now, the United Arab Emirates deal holds the opportunity for a Palestinian state. This is what was said in the Jerusalem Post on the 6th of this month. I am addressing this article to the Palestinian Authority with a warning. Having missed so many opportunities in the past to settle their conflict with Israel, it has now reached a point of no return. The mutual recognition between the United Arab Emirates and Israel does not impede any prospect for resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict based on a two-state solution. In fact, it makes it possible, provided the Palestinians understand that their intransigence will only further undermine rather than help their prospect of establishing an independent state of their own. The fact that the UAE conditioned its recognition of Israel on freezing any further annexation is considerably important. It offers the Palestinians the opportunity to move forward and enter into unconditional negotiations now, while there will be no further annexation of Palestinian land. Even though Prime Minister Netanyahu said the halt on further annexation is temporary, once the Palestinians agree to negotiate in good faith, they will make it impossible for an Israeli government to annex any territory without risking normalization of relations with other Arab states. The Palestinian Authority ought to understand that other Arab countries such as Bahrain and Oman will sooner than later follow the UAE's initiative, and they too will insist that Israel no longer annex further Palestinian territory. At this juncture, the Palestinians cannot stop other Arab states from normalizing relations with Israel, as they in principle have decided that their national interest precedes that of the Palestinians, albeit they will still push and promote the idea of establishing a Palestinian state. Israel is a dominant power, and it is becoming stronger rather than weaker relative to the Palestinians and other countries in the region. Furthermore, without peace, the Palestinians will continue to depend on Israel in a number of ways. Well, we're drawing to a close in our time, but one last thing. Let me remind you that the official opening of the United Nations will be the 15th of September, the same day as this big ceremony is scheduled for on the White House lawn. It's going to be exciting.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
I have left a piece of my heart in Israel and her people. We would like to thank Endtime for doing such an awesome job with our Israel tour. We marvel at your team keeping the time schedule, keeping everyone comfortable, the wonderful driver, the brilliant guide, the entire tour program, good hotel choices, and stellar food. We had the privilege to rub shoulders with Pastor Baxter, listen to his current teachings, and had some interesting questions answered so eloquently. He is wonderful. Helene from Australia.
Experience the Holy Land in the most amazing way. Join Irvin and Judy Baxter for our upcoming Israel tour. For more information, go to endtime.com or call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
With all of these events happening, and I mean they're happening like a waterfall, everything is coming together very rapidly, with the United Nations opening on the 15th, which is just next week from the time I'm making this program. With all of that happening, what's the possibility that immediately after this ceremony between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, perhaps Bahrain will make the announcement the next day or two, look, we're making peace with Israel as well. I don't know whether that's going to happen that quickly or not, but one article said that Bahrain wants to make this move just as soon as the agreement between the United Arab Emirates and Israel is finalized. Well, that is the 15th. Furthermore, with the United Nations holding its session from the 15th through the 29th, now the first week of the United Nations meeting is when there's a lot of different special meetings held, but the public debate begins on the 22nd. So this is going to be a tremendously important time. And wouldn't President Trump like so much to be able to announce several more of these agreements, more and more people moving their embassies to Jerusalem, more and more people striking agreements with Israel? Well, we can certainly foresee that happening. Now, further intransigence on the part of the Palestinians, as has been demonstrated in the past, will only allow Israel to entrench itself deeper in the West Bank. Any concessions that Israel may be willing to make today in connection with relocating some settlements or the extent of land swaps may no longer be possible in years to come. The decision by the Arab states is to begin a process of reconciliation with Israel. That process is unstoppable because they have realized that Israel is the singular power in the region that can stop Iran from achieving its objective of becoming the region's hegemony equipped with nuclear weapons. In addition, they want to benefit from Israel's advanced technology, intelligence, and even military training. Moreover, Israel will continue to receive the support of the United States, even if Joe Biden becomes president. He will certainly maintain the U.S. security guarantee. Finally, the Palestinian Authority will be wise to immediately resume contact with the U.S. because there is no power other than the United States, not even the European Union, not Russia, nor China, that can pressure Israel to make any significant concessions. Every Palestinian who has a say ought to consider these facts and realize that no matter how much they complain or to whom they appeal, no one can change these realities. It is time for Abbas to recognize that the disunity among the Palestinians is a curse that Israel has been able to exploit for many years. The lack of unity of purpose between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, in particular, has inflicted a severe blow to the Palestinians' aspiration for statehood. You do remember that there was this big split back in 2007. They had an election in Gaza, and Hamas won 70-some% of the vote. Well, that left Mahmoud Abbas the president of the entirety. At that time, Gaza and the West Bank were all unified. That left Mahmoud Abbas the president of the whole area, but it left the parliament heavily weighted in favor of Hamas. Hamas didn't want to wait, so they launched a military coup, driving Mahmoud Abbas out of the country in a matter of 24 hours. So Abbas, since that time, has been ruling only the West Bank area, and Hamas has been led under its own government down in the area of Gaza. Well, this split has weakened them terribly. It is time for both camps to realize that their disunity played directly into the hands of the hardcore Israelis, and finding common ground between them to end the conflict is absolutely necessary if Israeli-Palestinian peace is to be based on a two-state solution. Thus, it is time for the Palestinians to wake up Any day, week, or month of continued resistance to changing their attitude and refusing to enter into negotiations with Israel, the more political and physical ground they will lose. Anyone who surveys the evolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict will come to the inescapable conclusion that the Palestinians now are badly on the losing side. Unless they act, they will, by their own actions and misguided policies, scuttle any prospect left for establishing a Palestinian state. This should serve as a warning. Time is running out, and any further political and on-the-ground losses they sustain today will not be able to be regained in the future. The Palestinians at this juncture cannot afford to miss yet another opportunity, which may well be their last. Who was it? Mr. Abba Eban, who was the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations back during the '67 war. He made this statement. He said, the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. And that's been the history of the Palestinians. Now, the writer of this article is now saying, don't miss another opportunity, because this most likely will be your last. Now, that's the kind of pressure that the Palestinians are getting from every side, from Egypt, from Jordan, from the United Arab Emirates, and many other places, particularly the United States of America. This is the kind of message that they are getting. Well, it's going to be really interesting to see how all this breaks down. Now, I'm getting ready to come to the phones. Just before I do, though, I want to make sure that we all really get it, that all of these developments are driving us rapidly toward a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. Is there going to be one? Yes, there is. The Bible says that the Antichrist will confirm the Abrahamic covenant with many for a 7-year period. When that incident takes place, you and I will enter the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. What incredible, enthralling times you and I are living in right now. How quick do we expect this to happen? Could it happen yet in 2020? It certainly could. I mean, here we are in September of 2020. But with all this movement right now, it would be very possible that an unexpected announcement would be given. Now, if not 2020, I think the option of 2021 becomes even more likely. So what I'm saying to all of you out there is, you say, what does this mean to me? Well, the final 7 years will be, it will contain more prophetic fulfillment than any like 7-year period since the world began. That's a big statement, but it's true. I mean, we're talking about the building of Israel's third temple. We're talking about the resumption of animal sacrifice. We're talking about the revealing of the Antichrist to the world. We're talking about the appearance of the false prophet. We're talking about the beginning of the Great Tribulation. We're talking about the 2 witnesses that God will send upon the earth. We're talking about the mark of the beast. I'm talking about all that jammed into one 7-year period, and all of it culminating with the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. So what should you do about it? You need to make sure you really understand it all. I would urge you, we have a college called the Jerusalem Prophecy College. I would urge you to enroll in that college today, because I've just given you a fraction of some of the things that you can expect. This is 11 semesters, 155 lessons, but it's not that hard. You can go through it quickly. So I urge you, enroll in the Jerusalem Prophecy College. Simply go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com and then register and enroll in your first course. And just give it a half hour every day. You say, I'm a busy person. I know We all are. But if you will set aside a half hour a day, anybody can do that. You can go faster than you think you can, because you will learn all about the prophecies of the end time. And most important, you can realize what you need to do to prepare yourself, because everything is moving towards the coming of Jesus Christ back to this earth. The Bible says, every eye shall behold him. That means your eyes, my eyes. Every eye shall behold him. The Bible says the Lord shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God. The dead in Christ will rise first from the graves. They'll rise immortal. Then we which are alive and remain will be changed from mortal to immortality. And then both the dead that have been raised and us that are alive and remaining will be caught up together to meet Jesus Christ in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Now, this is what we have to look forward to as we're on the brink of entering these final 7 years. You don't need to be playing Russian roulette with your soul. You need to know where you are, that you're doing God's will in your life. So go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com, register, get started right away, and go as fast as you can. If you're already a member of the Jerusalem Prophecy College, but you're sort of procrastinating a little bit, quit it. Set aside at least a half hour a day and get through the course, because you're going to need everything in that course, and it's all going to culminate with the dramatic, amazing second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. What a time it's going to be. Now, I know you're waiting there to get on the line, and I want you to get on the line, but I don't want to fail to let you know how important this really is. Now, since we're close to a break, I don't want to bring someone on yet. So I'm going to immediately go to the phones as soon as we're finished with this break, because I want to try to cover as much territory as we possibly can. One other thing that you can do, and we would really love it if you would do this, if you would become a partner with Endtime Ministries, and all you have to do is go to endtime.com, and there's a place where you can sign up to be a partner. Or if you would prefer to do it over the phone, call us, 800-END-TIME, 800-363-8463. And just let our operators know. You say, well, what happens when I'm a partner? If God blesses you where you can contribute monthly so that we can expand the reach of Endtime Ministries and reach as many people as we can in the short time we have left. In addition, you will get my special letter that I write to all of our partners once a month, telling you the latest things that are happening. You will become part of the Endtime family. So call 800-END-TIME to become a partner, or go to endtime.com. We'll be back in just a moment. Most of us walk around day by day blind to the prophecies being fulfilled right before us. Every news report brings a new piece to the puzzle in the race towards the final 7 years and the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, more than ever, it is important for God's people to understand the times in which we are living. On November the 12th, 2013, we opened our Jerusalem Prophecy College in downtown Jerusalem. These same courses are now available online for people who are unable to attend the classes in person. We welcome students to join us and discover the link between current events and the prophecies of the Bible. Take your place in the prophecy of Daniel 11:33. Enroll in the Jerusalem Prophecy College today. Go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com. Please keep your questions sharp and to the point. I'll try to do the best with my answers. We're going right now to Andrew calling from Texas. Hello, Andrew. Welcome.
Hey, brother. In regards to the two witnesses, do you think that they know who they are today, or will eventually know who they are? And then also, do you think their ministry will actually kind of ramp up and begin before the 3.5 mark?
Well, I seriously doubt that they know right now who they are. Maybe they have a premonition. I don't know. But the Bible tells us that they will actually appear on the world scene at the same time the Antichrist, the false prophet, is revealed, which happens at the halfway mark of the final 7 years. So 3.5 years before Armageddon is when the Antichrist, the false prophet, will be revealed. That's the same time, according to Revelation chapter 11, starting with verse number 3, that the two witnesses will begin to prophesy for the next 1,260 days, which is 3.5 years. So they probably already have a ministry. They're probably already being prepared by God. But as far as them knowing who they are for certain, probably not.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. Let's go now to Michael calling from Georgia. Hello, Michael.
Yes, Brother Baxter, how are you today?
I am doing great, thank you.
Listen, I was explaining your teaching about America being in the Bible to someone last week, and I was reading from Daniel 7:4, and it said the first was like a lion, it had eagle's wings. I watched until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And I'd heard you teach that the eagle naturally was America, and that standing up on the feet of a man, we had another symbol, Uncle Sam. And I noticed, and it really threw me, that it was a lion that stood up. And I was wondering what you thought about that. And I have one more question, but if you could answer that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, Michael, it depends. That's worded a little bit funny. The Bible says, I beheld the wings thereof were plucked, and it was made stand on the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. There are some people that think that's referring to Great Britain. However, the way it's worded, it could actually refer to either one. But since America has had the heart of a man, you know, most nations, when they go to war, they defeat a country and then they spoil it and take away its riches. We don't. We defeat a country and we'll go in and spend billions to rebuild that country and to put them back on their feet. So I believe that's what it means when it says the heart of a man was given to it. However, if a person differs with me on that interpretation, it really doesn't make any difference as far as the overall meaning of the prophecy. So every person's got to decide for themselves what they think that actually says.
Okay, that's great. Well, listen, during the 1,000-year millennium, will any of the people that have taken the mark of the beast, will they live to go into the 1,000-year millennium, or will they all be destroyed by the wrath of God?
I can't answer that for sure because I've been looking for a Bible answer for that. I have a scripture in front of me. This is Zechariah chapter 14, verse 16. It says, and it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem, speaking of during the Battle of Armageddon, they will even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So there will be people left from the nations that actually fought against Israel at the Battle of Armageddon. And the ones who survived will then, during the millennium, go up to worship Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of hosts. Whether that's referring to some people that had the mark, I do not know. I would not want to take that chance. I'll just tell you right now. And all I can tell you is in Revelation 14, verse 9 through 11, it says, all those that take the mark of the beast will be tormented in the lake of fire in front of the holy angels and the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment ascends up forever. They have no rest day nor night. Now, when that says that, I'm not willing to gamble my eternity on taking a chance. So I would just say, don't take the mark. Make sure you make the rapture. That's the most important thing.
Yes, sir. I've tried several weeks to get a hold of you. One more quick question. When this all happens, you have mentioned that you would tell the people that's living in the West Bank to come to Jerusalem. I noticed that Jesus told them to flee to the mountains. I'm not questioning you. I just want to understand. If he said flee to the mountains, why do you think it would be okay to go to Jerusalem? And that's all. I'll take my answer off the air. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michael. Well, I've been to Israel 40 times, and I understand the geography of the nation very well. It's full of mountains. And especially when you deal with the area of Judea, what he's saying is, go anywhere you can to get away and hide. The reason I say ultimately get to Jerusalem, that means they've gotten back into Israel proper. As long as they're out hiding in the mountains, they're still prey to the Palestinians who will be trying to kill them. But yes, they need to flee to wherever they can get away and hide, but then ultimately they should make their way to Jerusalem, because once they make it there, they're within the protection of the Israeli government, and no longer would the Palestinians be able to slaughter them. That's the reason that I believe that that's the proper approach. Okay, gotta go really quickly here. Let's go now to Brenda calling from California. Hello, Brenda.
Hello, Pastor. Last week we didn't get to continue this conversation. I got accidentally disconnected. I wanted to finish up if we could. We were talking about Adam and Eve in the garden and their physical and spiritual beings. I know that they were physical and that God made them out of the dust, and they were spiritual because he breathed his breath into them and they became a living soul. And I also know that when they rebelled, they brought the curse of sin and death on mankind. Now that is spiritual, as I understand it, because sin is in the spirit, and the death that they had was in their spirit. They did die physically, but I thought that in the Garden of Eden, there was no decay, there was no death, and so I'm trying to see, would Adam and Eve die anyway, whether they had rebelled or not, and of course, everybody couldn't have lived forever if they hadn't have rebelled, because there wouldn't have been room for everybody. So I'm kind of trying to figure out how all this fits together.
Well, Brenda, you're asking a hypothetical question. God knew from the beginning that Adam and Eve were going to disobey. Consequently, he knew that mankind was not going to live forever at this time, even though that was his desire. So when they died spiritually, we know that it was not referring to a physical death, because they didn't die. The scripture says, the day you eat of this tree, you will surely die. So they ate of the tree, but they end up living another 900 years or so. So he obviously was speaking of a spiritual death, not a physical death. But did God know that they were going to ultimately die physically? Yes. And he also reduced the amount of time that mankind would live as time went along. There for a while, a lot of the people lived to be almost 1,000 years of age. But then because of the sinfulness of man, he reduced their lifespan to 120 years. Well, that still, the longer he allowed them to live, the more sinful they became. And so then he reduced the lifespan again and said, now from this time onward, the lifespan will be 70, that's 70 years, and if by reason of strength, 80 years. So right now, the average lifespan is somewhere around 70 to 80 years. So anyway, the bottom line is the death that he spoke of was a spiritual death, but ultimately they died. If they had not sinned, would they have lived forever? It's very likely they would have. How would God have done that? I don't know. That's all hypothetical, because that's not what happened. So I guess we can ask that question when we're sitting around the throne a few years from right now.
Okay.
Thank you, Brenda. I got to let you go. Let's go now to Jim in the truck. Hello, Jim. Jim, are you there?
Hello.
I hear you very faintly, Jim, so I need for you to turn up your volume or something.
All right, let me see what I got here. I got it all the way up. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear. What's on your mind?
Yes, I hit a dead area there for a minute. This is part of the fallen nature. Anyway, I had two things I want to say if I got time, but that ambassador at the UN that nominated Trump, he had a lot of good things to say, never mind what he's done for this country, but he had a couple derogatory things. I'm wondering, what do you think? Do you think that this could be like a last-ditch effort, because they would give the Nobel Peace Prize they would give the prize on the 9th, and they would actually present it to him on December 10th. Do you think that could be a thing? I got one more thing I'd like to talk about, too.
Well, obviously, if it's announced to the world that Trump has been given the Nobel Peace Prize on the 9th of October, that's going to be a big, big feather in his cap, especially if other nations have jumped on the bandwagon already. We've got the United Arab Emirates, we've got Kosovo, we have Serbia, we may have Bahrain, and it could be a lot of other nations by then. It would certainly be a great boon to his candidacy for president, the vote being held on November the 3rd. So we don't, some of that's speculative, but some of it's already scheduled to happen. So we'll just have to wait and see. And he may not get the prize. There will be a lot of people that oppose him. He said, I should have gotten the prize in 2018, but he said, I don't think they'll ever give it to me because they feel like he's too blunt and too brash, and therefore they seek somebody that will be a little bit more suave. Nevertheless, it looks like there's a good they're going to have a hard time, especially if he would get a final peace deal. It would be almost impossible not to give him the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, the Abrahamic Accords are amazing. They call it that. It's just, it seems like we're in the fast lane now with this coming down, and they're going to fall like dominoes. But there's a Fox News contributor that spoke about, I won't say his name, doesn't matter, but he's a very popular person. But he's saying that the Republicans should go out and do peaceful rallies. Now, that would be fine if this was an insurrection. What are the laws on insurrection in this country? And what do you think should be done? I know that Trump is doing things right now like trying to stop the indoctrination all the way from K all the way up to junior high, into college, middle school, and into high school, and into the universities. They've indoctrinated these people with their socialist propaganda. So what can we do? Is there anything we can do? Like I said, I've come from the military myself, and it really bothers me, but I don't think peaceful protests are going to stop these people. What do you think?
Listen, Jim, we're just about out of time, so let me answer you. One thing that President Trump is pounding away about continually is school choice. He knows that the colleges right now are cranking out socialists. 70% of all college grads that are millennials now say they would vote socialist. Well, if we don't get that turned around, we'll end up being a socialist country. I don't believe we will be, but we have to get that turned around. Now, the other thing, what do you do about all these agitators who are rioting? President Trump is quietly going out, and they're taking film of every one of these riots, and they find the people that are the ringleaders that are traveling from state to state to state that are actually filming these riots, and they are arresting them one by one. I am expecting Trump to bring this thing to a slow but sure halt. Totally out of time. Thank you for participating today. God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.